7 principles of the Constitution. So a principle is basically like an idea that is displayed in the Constitution. Their main ideas, if this was English class. So the 7 main ideas of the Constitution are popular sovereignty, republicanism, federalism, separation of powers, checks and balances, limited government, and individual rights. So popular sovereignty means that the power to rule comes from the people. It's drawing back from that idea of consent from the Enlightenment thinkers. People have to consent to their government. This is practiced through voting. We vote on laws. We vote on representatives. In the Constitution, the preamble states, "We the people." It's the first 3 biggest part, the biggest letters, the biggest words in the Constitution because it's the most important part. As soon as the people stop giving the Constitution power, it no longer has power. Just like money. We give money value. It's just a piece of paper, but we give it value. And as soon as we don't give it value anymore, it no longer is worth anything. All right, republicanism. Republicanism is a form of government where the people vote on a representative to speak for them in government. So instead of me just going and speaking in government and telling them my idea and what works for me, I vote on somebody who represents me to do that. This is also called representative government, like we learned in the 13 colonies, but republicanism is an actual solidified, phrase used for this type of government. Then you have federalism, which basically means there's 3 different types of government within our government. We have the national government, the state government, and local government. All 3 of these are led by the federal government. So whatever the federal government says, that's what goes. They are the highest authority. Separation of powers. This prevents too much power from going to one branch. The legislative branch, their job is to make the laws. They're made up of a bicameral, which means 2 houses. They have an upper house, which is the Senate, and each state gets 2 senators, and the lower house is based on state population. The executive branch enforces the laws. This branch is made up of the president, vice president, and their cabinet members. And we'll talk more about cabinet members later, but basically they are just advisors to the president. The president has to know a wide variety of topics, and there's just no way that one man or woman in the future would know enough to make informed decisions about that. So each cabinet member is a expert, or supposed to be an expert, in their field. So for example, there's a cabinet member over education, and their expertise is in education. The judicial branch interprets the laws. This branch is made up of federal judges, but most importantly, Supreme Court justices. They are the ones that decide if laws are constitutional or unconstitutional. Checks and balances. This is based on that Enlightenment thinker, Charles de Montesquieu. Each branch checks another branch. A check is some kind of control. It's to keep those powers from getting too massive, too big. So the legislative branch can impeach the president, which is the executive branch, and also approves justices appointed to the Supreme Court, so they check the judicial branch in that way. The executive branch can sign or veto, which means overrule, a law made by the legislative branch, or appoints justices to the Supreme Court, which is how they check the judicial branch. The judicial branch can overturn any law made by Congress or the president if they are deemed unconstitutional. Limited government basically means that everyone, including the government leaders themselves, has to follow the laws, and the government is restricted to the rules of the Constitution just like everybody else. They are limited. Individual rights is upheld in the Bill of Rights, which consists of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They are put into the Constitution as a way to tell the government what they can't do to its people. So the First Amendment is the freedom of RAPS, which is religion, assembly, petition, and press and speech. So religion just means that you can freely practice your religion. Assembly means that you can freely assemble together with a group of people. Petition means that you can protest. Press is for like newspapers, the news, the media. They have access to most information. And speech just means you're free to say whatever you want as long as you're not threatening anybody and as long as you're not hurting anybody. Which of these first 5 freedoms given in the First Amendment do you think is the most important? And give me 2 reasons why that's very important. 2 reasons. The right to bear arms is the Second Amendment. Everyone can own their own weapons. So this is important to make sure that the government doesn't get too much power, and so that way it's still from the people. We can overthrow our government whenever we need to. The right not to have soldiers housed in your home. The right to not have quartered soldiers in your house. So where does that come from? Where do you think this amendment came from? They got this idea from somewhere, so where was the information from? Amendments 4 through 8 are the criminal justice amendments. They're the ones that protect your rights during due process, which is the time from when you are suspected of a crime until the time you are punished for your crime or rehabilitated, because that's what prisons are supposed to be. They're supposed to be rehabilitations. These amendments tell the police and the courts what they can and cannot do. So, Amendment number 4 prevents searches and seizures without a warrant. It quote unquote protects privacy. We are never granted privacy in the Constitution, but it is interpreted from Supreme Court justices that we do have privacy because of the Fourth Amendment. Police officers can't just walk into your home and start looking for something, even if they suspect you of a crime. There was a case in, I want to say it was Colorado, but I'm not 100% sure. A burglar ran into a woman's home, and the police ran into the house looking for the burglar because obviously the woman is in danger if it's a burglar that has a gun. So they go in to protect her. Well, in the process, they find a bunch of very, very bad things that are harmful to children specifically. And so they arrested the woman who owned the house. Well, they had to release that woman because they didn't have a warrant and they shouldn't have been looking for illegal substances, for illegal things. So she got to walk off scot-free because they didn't have a warrant, even though she was guilty of several crimes to children. Like, they found children in her house. Kidnapped children in her house. Like, that's how bad it was. Number 5 is the freedom from self-incrimination. If you've ever heard someone say, I plead the Fifth, this is what this means. You do not have to say anything to the police or to the courts that makes you look guilty. Whether you're guilty or not, you have the right to not say it because it could make you look guilty. It also protects you from being found innocent it prevents you from being found guilty after you've been found innocent of a crime, which is called double jeopardy. So once you're found innocent or not guilty, you cannot be found guilty of that crime. Number 6 is the right to speedy and public trial. Number 7 is the right to trial by jury. Number 8 is the freedom from excessive bails or punishment. Like, many people now consider the death penalty excessive punishment. Number 9 gives rights to the people. It's a power to the people. I describe number 9 and number 10 kind of like James Madison's forget you to the Anti-Federalists, because he thought that the Constitution was perfect. It didn't need all these amendments because it limits people's power to what the amendments say. But with 9 and 10, he kind of threw more power back into people and back into the states. Number 10 gives all powers not listed in the Constitution to the states and to the people. So number 9 and 10 give people a lot of power. The 9th Amendment is so vague that it could be interpreted, and it has been interpreted a million different ways. So it could mean that people have the power to do literally anything. What do you think is the most important principle of the Constitution for government? What do you think gives government the most power or the most limitations, whichever one you think is the most important? Next question, what do you think is the most important principle for people? Now, these principles are not bills. They're not the Bill of Rights. They are principles, the 7 main ideas that I talked about. Which one do you think is the most important? And that